Welcome back. Just a quick review. I've just covered line, shape, and form. The target was to list and identify qualities of line, shape, and form. I hope that as you paused and reviewed the different notes that were covered in these slides that you have with you and the study guide that you have with you on the Unit 1, the Elements of Art Part 1, you were able to identify and list different characteristics and quality of line, shape, and form, as well as identify these qualities in artwork. The element of value. Now, our target is to identify and list qualities of value. And of course, by qualities, I mean characteristics of value. The vocabulary terms include value, value scale, tone, monochromatic, contour drawing, technique, stippling, cross-hatching, hatching, and blending. Again, let's revisit the binary opposites concept. A binary opposite is a pair of two related terms or concepts that are opposite in meaning yet are interconnected and coexist. Like shape is the opposite of form. Geometric is the opposite of organic. Actual line, the opposite of implied line. This concept will also be applicable to understanding the different categories and qualities of value. Line drawing versus realistic drawing. We're going to talk about value. We'll move further to texture and space in the Unit 1 Part 2, so don't worry about this part, okay? We will not cover this for the Unit 1 Part 1 assessment. However, looking at these two images again, the difference that we see in these drawings, we have compared similarities like shape, the star, the circle, and the logo of the Converse All-Star shoes. We saw that these two images had both examples of lines. In this image, the Converse All-Star picture A, we know that this is a line drawing. Therefore, lines are used to create the drawing of the Converse All-Star shoe, as well as add detail to the drawing. In this example of the Converse All-Star shoe B, we see that lines had a different function, although we still see that they both have lines, which is an element that they share in common. And these lines were used to create the effect of wear and tear to the shoe, as well as the stitching along the side of the Converse shoe, and even this imprint of line on the foot or the toe, the front of the shoe. Now let's talk about the differences, because this picture is an example of a picture that is drawn using value versus this picture, which is a line drawing. And this will help us to understand the concept of value. In visual art, the binary opposite of a contour drawing, which is this example here, is a realistic drawing, which is this example here. Why are these two drawings examples of binary opposites? Why is a contour drawing an example, is a binary opposite of a realistic drawing? Excuse me. And that is what we're going to understand, that's what we're going to be able to understand as we learn and review value. So first, let's talk about what is value. It is the darkness and lightness of a color. A value scale, like the example right here in this image, is the layout of the gradual change of a color's dark to light tones, or the consecutive ordered layout, like from dark to light, it's an order, of a color's shades and tints. The shades are the darker areas and the tints are the lighter areas. Monochromatic means one color. A light source is simply the object, like the sun, that gives off light. This is very important as we take the value scale and apply it to drawings like the egg here, where we see the darker tones that create the shadow, which is opposite the light source, and the lighter tones, which create the areas where the light is shining on top of the object, creating a three-dimensional effect overall. Hence, this is an example of how value is used in drawing. A contour drawing, which is the binary opposite of a realistic drawing, is simply French for the term outline drawing. We see here that this drawing is definitely an example of value applied to the portrait of this person, this young woman. Before the artist applies value, however, the artist has to create a contour and outline of the young woman in order to add the value. So although these are opposites, like the nature of a binary opposite, the two coexist. They are interconnected. You have to have the outline before you can have the value. Therefore, the value has to have the outline in order for it to look correct and accurate. Hence, they are two binary opposite examples. There are 4 techniques to value, and a technique is simply a method an artist uses to create a certain visual effect in the artwork. And these 3 different drawings are all examples of value used in different ways, hence different techniques to show value. The first technique is cross-hatching, and that's when you take 2 different directional diagonal lines, like hashtags, to create light and dark shades. The more lines you use, the darker the tone. The fewer lines you use, the lighter the tone. These areas are darker tones, and as you move towards this part of the drawing, the tones get lighter and the lines are fewer. Stippling is another example of a value technique. The use of dots to create light and dark shades. The more dots used, the darker the tone, and then fewer dots means lighter tone. Hence, the areas here where we see the hands folded in within the palm, that means that these tones are darker, and then as the dots spread apart, the tones become lighter, creating the effect of value using dots or stippling. Hatching is very similar to cross-hatching, except these are one-directional lines that overlap. And as they overlap, they get darker. As the overlap becomes less and less, the tones get lighter. Blending is the final technique in showing value. It is the pressing harder or lighter on the surface of the artwork with a pencil charcoal stick to get light and dark shades. The harder you press the lead, the graphite onto the paper, the darker the tone. The lighter you press the lead, the graphite onto the paper, the lighter the tone. And here is a visual example of blending. Although we see some of the veins in the skin that could denote some semblance of hatching or cross-hatching, the overall image has been smoothed out in regards to how the value was applied, and that smooth effect is an example of the technique blending. So observe the artworks on the projector screen. Identify the type of value technique the artist used by writing it in the blanks provided below. So this was a TOC that my students we received, and if you were absent, all I want you to do is look at the screen of this video review of the different slides for value. And I want you to look at the example of the tiger. Notice how it is an example of stippling. Stippling, of course, is when we use the dots to create the different value tones in the drawing to denote the realistic nature of the drawing. The lion, however, is an example of blending. Although we see lines here that denote fur, and it's the lines that look kind of like hatching, because the drawing has an overall smooth effect, it's very smooth on the surface, this is an example of blending. You will be able to identify the different qualities of value, stippling, cross-hatching, hatching, and blending in other artworks as well.